What is going on, Swayze gang? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a pretty touchy subject, and that is the 7 things that I absolutely hate about my 2020 Dodge Challenger Hellcat. Okay, so in all seriousness, hate is a very, very strong word, and there is absolutely nothing that I sincerely hate about this car. This is my dream car. I've always wanted it, and it fulfills everything I've wanted in a car like this. And so let's get that off my chest right now. But just like human beings, just like everything in life, not everything is perfect. And the same applies to this car. Even though it is my dream car, there are things that I wish Dodge had fixed on this vehicle. And that's what we're going to be addressing in today's video. Now, it is actually hilarious how every single time I make a hate video like this, my comment section gets lit up by people just yelling at me saying, well, if you hate your car so much, I'll be happy to take it off your hands. And that's just not the case. I'm not making this video to complain about Dodge. I'm making this video to inform potential buyers or maybe current owners of this vehicle that there are some issues that you may have to work around, or maybe things that you should know about before buying this car. So that's my entire intent of these types of videos. I think there's a lot you can learn from these hate and like videos, and that's why I'm making it today. And it just so happens that you guys actually enjoy watching these hate videos way more than the like videos. My hate videos end up getting like double, if not triple, the views of any of my like videos. So take that for what it is. Now, before we get started on my list of grievances of this car, if you guys didn't see these 7 things that I hate on my 2017 Scat Pack, I'm gonna put that on the screen somewhere right now so you guys can check it out, because that video actually had a completely different list of items than what I address in today's video. Some of those pertain to the Scat Pack specifically, some of them pertain to the Challenger, and so if you guys want 14 items, I'd recommend you watch that video after this one, because it may give you some additional information. Okay, now let's kick it off in no particular order. The number 1 thing that I absolutely hate about my 2020 Dodge Challenger Hellcat is the rear taillight divider. Yep, I'm talking about this section right here in particular. I really hate it. This thing is so prone to scratches. As you can see probably on the camera, it doesn't show up too well, but you can see there's these little micro scratches that go down the entire plastic, and it's absolutely unavoidable. It's so unavoidable, in fact, that when I initially bought this car back in October, I did not open the trunk at all. I didn't carry any luggage with me. I didn't open it up to put anything in the back. And what's crazy is after about a week of ownership, I found myself coming out to the rear of this car, and in the distance, I could already see there were some micro scratches going down on this black plastic. And I don't know of anybody who owns a 2015 and up Challenger who hasn't faced these exact same issues on this black plastic panel right here. It's just extremely prone to scratches. And I'm not talking about like key marks. I'm talking just rocks and micro debris that happens to kick up as you're driving down the road. And what's frustrating is this is a pretty high traffic area. I mean, you're constantly going to be pushing this button and opening this up, and the fact that even your fingernails can scratch this plastic goes to show that Dodge should have done a little bit of a better job when constructing the rear end of this vehicle. It got so bad on my 2017 Scat Pack that I ended up actually adding a taillight divider from Lux Auto Concepts, which was just a piece of vinyl with the Challenger letters on it, just to cover up the scratches that I had. And I'm probably going to end up doing the exact same thing on this car because I'm tired of seeing the scratches on this vehicle. Okay, now we're going to discuss the second thing I absolutely hate on my 2020 Hellcat, and to do that, we're going to have to open the hood. Okay, so before you crap your pants, I am not going to be talking about the engine. I'm actually going to be talking about the hood. Now, if you take a look under the hood, you'll see that this section right here, which is what the hood latch connects onto, I don't even know the name of it, I guess the hood connector, this part is peeling and chipping and kind of corroding in the surrounding areas. Like I'm rubbing it off over here and you can see flakes of corrosion or calcium buildup that's just kind of falling off of the car. And this car only has 3,700 miles. I mean, This looks like it's gone through 100,000 miles of openings and closings. Like, this is just unacceptable for a brand new car to have this much damage on the hood. And my concern is over time, this is going to obviously chip the paint off, chip the clear coat off, and it's gonna start rusting. If water gets in this area, you're gonna start seeing rust, and it's going to, you know, as you can see already in this area, it's just gonna have some buildup. And my concern is that this hood over time is going to rust. And I don't expect that to happen in the next 5 to 10 years, but if you're planning on owning this car for 20, 30 years, that is an issue that you're probably going to have to figure out how to fix. And I'm not the only one that has seen this problem. In fact, there are some bigger YouTubers that have mentioned this on previous year Dodge Challengers and Chargers, that their hood latch, or this connector over here, is facing some issues, and they're gonna have to either get it repainted or replaced and fixed, because this will corrode and rust over time. This is just one thing where Dodge should have either fixed the issue early on, considering this is already the 5th model year of the updated Challengers, or they should have just done a better job from the beginning. And that brings me to the third thing that I hate about my 2020 Dodge Challenger Hellcat, and that is the overall build quality. Now, I'm not actually going to be talking about the general quality of materials that they used inside the cabin or anything like that, because I'm actually not too upset. On the interior of the Hellcat, you have this fake leather type of dashboard. You've got soft touch materials, and you know, it's generally not that bad. For being a muscle car, for being a Dodge, I'm not gonna complain about that. What I will complain about is the build quality when it comes to some other things in the car. For one, when it is cold outside, and I notice the same thing on my Scat Pack, and let's say I'm pulling into a street or a driveway or parking lot, when I drive into that angle, when it's cold outside, I will hear a creaking sound coming from this general section of the windshield. It's almost as if the adhesive that's holding the windshield is separating from the body of the car, and it has this kind of uncomfortable creaking sound that, you know, just makes it seem like this car has 150,000 miles. And so a brand new car, you're driving into a parking lot, you hear this kind of creak or uncomfortable movement inside of the vehicle. Now, when I owned the Scat Pack, I thought maybe that was just general wear and tear, considering I bought the car used, but that's not really much of an excuse for a brand new car. I'm not gonna be able to replicate it right now because it's about 80 degrees outside, and the car does not make that sound when it's warm. But I know that is a common issue since I've had 2 Challengers with the exact same problem. The other issue I had, which I had to go to the dealership for, was something I made in a previous video in regards to the seat belt of my car. From the factory, I drove this car away, and I noticed quickly that there is a sound coming from the seat belt of the car, and it's inside. The internal mechanism was making a sound. So I had to take this back to the dealership because it was extremely annoying. It was like a cracking or crumpling sound inside of the vehicle that you just couldn't get away from. And I had to go back to the dealership, and what they ended up doing was just jerry-rigging some foam in there, and thank God, knock on wood, the sound has disappeared. But again, an issue that I shouldn't have from the factory buying a almost $80,000 vehicle. On top of those 2 things, when I initially bought the car, the alignment was off, and so I had to take it back to the dealership to get the alignment fixed. And if those 3 things were not enough, I also have a seat that sometimes creaks when I'm driving over bumps, which is another thing I'm gonna have to take back to the dealership to try to get fixed, or just put some WD-40 on it. Now, I understand that these are all little things, but when you add them all up, it is a little bit frustrating that a car at this price point has these many small issues. I could totally understand it from a car that's $20,000, but when you're paying almost 80 grand for a car, you really shouldn't be facing any of these issues. Now, the 4th thing that I hate about my 2020 Dodge Challenger actually has to do with the door handle. And no, I do not mean the looks, because I absolutely love the appearance of the door handle. I think the Charger and the Challenger are the only 2 vehicles on the planet that have not converted to the pull style handle, which this just looks so much more retro, so much more muscle car, and I love it. What I hate is the mechanism underneath. Let me try to explain it and show you on camera, because it's somewhat difficult to display. The car is now locked, and as with many cars in the 21st century, this is keyless entry. So as long as I have the key in my pocket, I can walk up to it and unlock the door. The problem is, oftentimes this car does not read my hand on the sensor that's located underneath the handle. So as you can see, the car is still locked, and I am trying to open it. And you'll actually notice that the little pin that's inside that's showing you whether it's locked or unlocked is trying to move, but it just doesn't unlock the car. And oftentimes this takes 3 or 4 attempts for me to actually unlock the car, or for it to read that my hand is located in the area of the sensor. This is unlike a lot of other cars that have this keyless entry system. For example, my fiance's Range Rover, if the vehicle is locked and I come up to it with the keys in my pocket, as I'm pulling on the handle, the car will recognize that I'm trying to unlock the vehicle, and it will simultaneously unlock as I'm opening the door. That's not the case with this vehicle. You initially have to place your hand on the sensor. Only after that can you open the door handle. And I actually addressed this to a Dodge dealership back when I had my 2017 Scat Pack, and they told me that this is a common issue with the Challenger. And it's true, because now I've had 2 Challengers with the exact same, not real issue, kind of a third world problem, but it is frustrating when you're rushing or trying to unlock the door and you're opening it 3 or 4 times and it just doesn't seem to read your hand. So ultimately you have to pretty much place your hand there, wait for it to unlock, only afterwards can you open the door. Now, the number 5 thing that I absolutely hate is the amount of fake stuff that they put on the front end. One example of that is the fake air inlet on the passenger side. So as you can tell, if I zoom in here, this is a fake inlet that leads to absolutely nowhere. There's just a plastic cap on the end of this headlight, which is opposite of what the driver's side is, which actually leads into the air intake system, into the engine. I don't really understand why they didn't just take this plastic off and route hose or tube going from the passenger side into the driver's side into the air inlet, but they didn't. They just left it as a plastic cap on the very end. It is kind of dumb that they just capped off opportunity to add more air into the intake. The second kind of fake inlet tube has to do with this dual snorkel hood. As I'm about to show you, the driver's side directly goes into the intake system of the car. So there is a hole over here, and this is directly linked to the air inlet on the driver's side. Now, the opposite is true of the passenger side. There is actually not really a significant channel going from the passenger side snorkel all the way to the driver's side. As a matter of fact, there is a very, very, very small chamber that runs from the passenger to the driver's side. It's probably about this size. There are some forums online that show you what it looks like, but it's about like a millimeter wide in diameter. And Dodge says they do that because they want to limit drag and they want to make it more aerodynamic, and it reduces the buffeting under the engine. But it is kind of silly for them to have a dual snorkel hood when this snorkel really serves no purpose. It does not channel additional air into the driver's side. It really just counterbalances the air that goes into here, but it doesn't really serve a purpose. And that's a little frustrating, and I get why they do it. It's all engineering, it's all aerodynamics, but it would have been nice for them to have an extra air inlet here and an extra air inlet there. Now, for the 6th thing that I hate about the Hellcat, we're gonna have to jump inside. And that has to do with the GPS system. Now, the GPS system on this car is absolute garbage. I mean, this GPS system is like probably from 2005, and they've never updated since then. I can never find any location or practically anything in the state of Utah on this map. Now, obviously they have like the big locations like the malls and other big points of interest, but when I'm trying to search for a home address or I'm trying to find the quickest way to get from point A to point B, this is not the GPS system to use. That is exactly why we have our phones. So I'm not really sure why anybody would care to use the GPS system on this car, aside from it showing you on the map and on your center display over here, kind of where you should turn and how long it's gonna take until your next exit. But aside from that, I would never use this system. This car has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and obviously those are much better GPS systems because they use your phone and they're updated in real time. It's visually appealing, like I think it looks pretty cool, and you can even change the little car here that's on the screen. But aside from that, it really doesn't serve any purpose. And along those lines, the voice activation system that you would use to activate these maps is potentially even worse than the maps themselves. For example, find address.
Searching for address in United States. Please say the street number, street, city, and Say enter country.
Fashion Place Mall.
Searching for address in United States. Please say the street.
Cancel.
Canceled.
I wasted about 30 seconds asking for directions to a mall, which would take me probably about 5 seconds to either type, or if I'm driving, I could speak it to my phone even quicker than that. I just don't know who would ever rely on the voice activation or the maps to get them reliably and as quickly from point A to point B. Now, I'm going to add even another level to the sixth thing that I hate about this car, and that also has to do with the way the Uconnect system integrates with my phone. If I am on a phone call and I happen to park the car, turn it off, and get out, the vehicle will not disconnect my audio conversation from the car. What I mean by this is I can transfer the phone call back onto my phone and start talking to people through the headset. The problem is the Uconnect system will continue to stay on until I have hung up on the phone conversation that I'm having. And it could be 10, 15 minutes after I turn off this car that the center display is still on, showing me who I'm talking to and the length of my phone call. And this is after the car has been turned off. My concern is if my conversation goes over 15, 20, 30 minutes, I don't want my battery to be drained because the center Uconnect system is still on because my conversation is still going on. Okay, now to finish off, the seventh thing that I hate about my 2020 Hellcat, well, that has to do with the service. And I'm not talking about the cost of service because that's actually relatively affordable for the price point of this car. What I'm talking about is the service that I receive from the Dodge dealership. I have taken this car to a dealership here in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I'll be completely honest, I have not received the best service that I would expect for a car with this price point. When you buy a $70,000 to $80,000 Mercedes, you have a certain level of expectation when it comes to the service and the amenities that you would expect at the dealership when you arrive. Every single time I've taken this car back, whether it was the alignment issue I had or the seatbelt issue, I kind of felt like I was the problem and not the car. At least that's how I was treated at my dealership. And not that that's acceptable at any price point. Good customer service is something that you don't have to have an expensive car to have. But what I'm trying to say here is I don't think that the Dodge dealership has kind of grown up to the level of service that's expected for people throwing down this amount of cash on a car. With the exception of my buddy Johnny, who actually works at the dealership, who has taken care of me every single time I've gotten there and has done a fantastic job explaining all the issues and working on them. Nobody else has really treated this car as what it is for its price point. And the same goes for a Scat Pack. Those cars are not cheap. It's probably impossible to find one for less than $50,000. But the level of service that you're going to expect is something of a car that's maybe in the mid $20,000 range. The average selling price of a Dodge, I imagine, is somewhere between $30,000 to $40,000. And so having a car that's $80,000, you're really not going to get the same level of service as if you go for a Mercedes of an equal price point. Part of the reason people go for luxury cars is you get a higher level of service. And I witnessed this firsthand when I had my Mercedes C300. Even though the MSRP of that car was pretty much half of this one, the average price of cars that dealership sells is much higher or closer to this Hellcat. And so, not to say that I got amazing service every single time, but they would listen to my problems, they would do their best to try to fix them, and they would go out of their way to try to accommodate my needs. Another example is my fiance's Range Rover. Her dealership has offered to drive a loaner car to our house, leave the loaner car there, drive her car to the dealership, do the service, and bring the car back all free of charge. I have never felt that way at any dealership here in Utah. I can't even imagine if you had a $80,000, $90,000 Red Eye or even a over $100,000 Demon. It just doesn't seem like the level of service is up to par to the vehicles that they're selling. Well, there you have it, folks. Those are the 7 things that I hate about my 2020 Dodge Challenger Hellcat. Now, I know a lot of the things that I pointed out are very, very minuscule and almost ignorable, and that's really just the truth of this car. There are not very many things that I would hate about this car. Otherwise, I wouldn't have this car on the channel. I mean, I love it. There are a million things that it does so well, but there are some things that I wish were done a little bit better. And if you are an owner of this vehicle, you could probably relate to some of the little gripes that I've pointed out in today's video. But if you guys haven't subscribed to the channel already, make sure you do that. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can stay on top of all of the weekly videos. Also, if you're not following me on Instagram and TikTok at Shwazy_, make sure you do so for all of the additional content outside of the channel. Now, like always, my friends, stay healthy, stay schwazy, and have a wonderful day.